We are at the very end of an absolute cheek clapping of a game. Patrick Mahomes is frustrated and defeated, Travis Kelce on the verge of tears, but this team, they were almost undefeated in the regular season. How did it get here? How could a potential three-peat looking team seem so bad? But to understand what truly happened, let me take you all the way back to the start of the 2024 season.
What we do here is go back.
But before we talk about this meltdown, let me talk about the meltdown I was trying to cancel a subscription. I couldn't get online with customer support. I couldn't figure out how to cancel it on the app. I was about to lose my mind if it wasn't for today's sponsor, Rocket Money. This is the app that you need to save money. It's going to help you cancel your subscription, it's going to lower your bills, and help you manage your money better. On top of that, in the app, you can set a custom budget, which will help out immensely. And I had no idea how many random subscriptions I had signed up for that were still draining money out of my account every month. But with Rocket Money, it finds those sneaky subscriptions and cancels them, and on average, it saves its users $720 a year. So take control of your finances today. Go to rocketmoney.com/IsaacPunts to start saving money today. They really make it so easy for you, the user, which is why I love them. So all the links are in the description. That's rocketmoney.com/IsaacPunts. Save some money. You'll thank me later. So here we are, back at the beginning of the NFL season, where the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, are about to go on the long and arduous journey to attempt something that has never been done before, the legendary three-peat. But the journey would not be easy, except for a little fact that they had something on their side called devil magic. I'm just joking, it's a little bit of luck. Now, typically luck is kind of a non-factor in sports because you can only win so many coin flips or have so many random end-of-game changing plays happen before eventually the pendulum has to swing the other way. At least that's how it usually is. But for the Chiefs, it didn't seem to be the case, not this year. Game 1, to tie the game up at the very end, Lamar throws a perfect pass to the back of the end zone to Likely, who comes down with it a centimeter of his foot being out of bounds, immediately ending the game. The next game against the Bengals, they had a pretty suspect pass interference call, and I won't go into the weeds of that, but a few weeks ago, we had almost an identical play happen that wasn't called as a flag, but that's aside the point. So they extend their drive and walk away from that game 2-0 as they win another nail-biter. If that's not enough, against the Falcons, there was a gaggle of goofy unforced errors at the end of that game when they had a chance to retake the lead in the closing minutes, but surely the Chiefs were starting to get this reputation of having luck, and it continued literally the whole season. The Raiders drop a snap in scoring position, Broncos get their game-winning field goal blocked, and against the Chargers, they had one bounce through. Now, let me be clear, I'm not saying they didn't deserve these wins, but so many of these games coming down to coin flip levels of luck, and the Chiefs kept winning those flips non-stop, was just insane. So after that Chargers game, the NFL world was just sick to their stomach. There was no way they could keep getting away with this, right? Well, before we could even ask that question, my God, the Kansas City Chiefs turned back on. They completely stifled the Browns in the back half of the season, had a convincing win against the Texans, and then made the Steelers look silly before being able to rest their starters and head into the playoffs, where they just, for whatever reason, were really not slowing down. I mean, when retaking on the Texans, they took care of business as their defense was showing how dominant they could be down the stretch. Then they had to go and rematch against the one team that truly just beat them this season, and in a hard-fought battle, they were able to sneak out a win against the Bills with only a few dubious calls going in their favor, meaning that for the first time in NFL history, it was actually happening. They were heading back to the Super Bowl for the 3rd year in a row, and not just taking on any old team, but the team that started their run of Super Bowls 3 years ago. But I guess to make this stand out a little bit, let's give you a backstory on the Eagles team, because they were not ones to be played with. They started off their season a little bit slow, not really on everyone's radar. Obviously last year they had a humongous end of the year collapse. Many were worried about Jalen Hurts' ability to be a high-level quarterback. Sirianni was on the hot seat as people were wondering if he was going to be the right guy for the Eagles, and then going 3-2 through their first 5 games with a good win over a strong Packers team, but then losing to the Falcons and Bucks and barely beating the Browns and Saints. People's optimism for the Eagles at the beginning of the season could not have been much slower. But then the long stretch of the season came and they just didn't lose. And not beating nobodies, but I mean the Bengals, Ravens, Rams, Commanders. Don't even remind a Cowboy fan how their season went against the Eagles this year. Their poor little hearts couldn't take it. And they may have been more of a story if it wasn't for the Lions, Vikings, and Packers looking like the absolute strongest single division in football this year, hogging all the NFC spotlight. But after a rough 4-game start, they would end their season 12-1 and had to go to the wild card round where they would take it to the next level. Game 1 against the Packers, a dominating 12-point win as they completely stifled Love. Then against the Rams, they were able to crush them off the back of Saquon Barkley getting 2 huge will-breaking runs to end the game, and then facing down the Commanders for the 3rd time this year. And I mean, my God, if I tell you that they scored 55 points while being merciful, you would understand how rough of a game this was. Now they had to go back and take on the Chiefs, and we had this weird conundrum. The Eagles felt like the better team. I mean, they just played 3 great games coming off of a dominating season, and the Chiefs, I mean, they had just consistently snuck by, leading to this ultimate impasse. If you asked somebody who was going to win, they might have said the Chiefs. But if you said, hey, the final score is going to be 45-14, who wins that? People would have told you it would be the Eagles. So with all this tension, there was only one thing left to do, and that was play the game. And it started out looking like the Chiefs might have still had plenty of luck left in the tank. The Eagles' first drive was moving. The Steve Spagnuolo defense had one clear goal in mind, and it was stop Saquon and force Jalen Hurts to beat them in the air. And he wasn't doing a half-bad job of it until on 4th and 2, he finds Brown to move them into the red zone, but there it was. The life-saving offensive pass interference call. I mean, I've seen worse that wasn't called, but you can call it a pass interference, and trust me when I say that Twitter was erupting when this happened. But Braden Mann pinned them back, and we saw something we didn't see very often from the Chiefs offense. A full-on nothing burger of a drive. 4 plays, a Travis Kelce drop, an incomplete pass later, and Ariza was giving the ball back, where despite a 58-yard monstrous punt later, the Eagles would take it back and get in good field position where they would capitalize on it with a touchdown. But not just that. Drive 2 by the Chiefs, and it was the same thing. They just couldn't get the ground game going, and Mahomes couldn't find the connection with his receivers with another 3 and out. And yes, Hurts threw an interception the following drive, but that was a pick at the end of a drive where he was moving the ball consistently down the field, and it didn't feel like it was changing the game as much as it was delaying the inevitable. As just 3 plays later, the Chiefs were giving it right back on the back of another Travis Kelce drop. And it just seemed like, in that moment, the waters had sufficiently been chummed. The Eagles could do nothing else if not feast on the corpse of a team being paraded around like they were still alive. The Eagles drove, kicked a field goal, then immediately followed that up with Cooper DeJean's first interception turned house call as the game was beginning to spiral. The next drive went 6 yards backwards. The new theme was about to emerge of Mahomes getting dominated in the backfield as they only needed a 4-man pass rush to be able to create immense pressure until a pin punt set up interception number 2 of the night, and in the blink of an eye, it was 24-0. All that devil magic from earlier in the season had completely completely dried up. By the end of the first half, no drive extending penalties, no crazy drops on the other side, only weird, uncharacteristic drops by the Chiefs players. It's like they had asked to make it back to the Super Bowl, and in real time we were seeing the monkey paw curling, with their less than 30 yards in the first half. In the second half, things didn't really change. The Eagles put up 16 more points in their first 4 drives, as the Chiefs were able to find the end zone only a single time in the same duration. The score was sitting at a dominant 40-6 with 8 minutes left in the fourth. And what's important for those who were here this day is to remember the feeling being up 40-6 with 8 minutes, because people will inevitably try to rewrite this game. Oh, the Chiefs didn't look that bad. They scored 22 on this defense. But they didn't really. They scored 0 when the game was on the line, 6 when it was pretty far out of reach, and another 16 when it absolutely did not matter at all. But ultimately, this game was defined by 2 Chiefs failings. First, they failed to protect Mahomes. There's a fun stat where teams who don't have to blitz have won 100% of those games. And the thing about not blitzing is you typically don't blitz when you don't have to, as the entire game we saw that 4 pass rushers was creating more than enough pressure to keep Mahomes moving in the pocket, and they sacked him 6 times while creating tons of pressure, which means that they had 7 people back in coverage every single play, creating a multi-layered blanket that Mahomes had no chance of breaking out of. And on the flip side, it was clear that the Chiefs didn't want to lose to Saquon Barkley, but failed to account for Hurts, who, yeah, threw the ball well, but more importantly, on the biggest stage, tucked it and became the team's leading rusher, as he accounted for 293 yards. As for the first time in a game this season, Spags did not seem to have a great answer for all the receiving threats and 2 great rushers out of the backfield. It reminds me of the TCU playoff run, though. They kept the games close, they found gritty ways to win, and even having a few things go your way to get some win. And at the end of it all, even after a playoff run, convincing people that maybe they were wrong about you, when that luck runs out, it really runs out, leading to high-flying teams falling flat on their face on the biggest stage.
Sure again.